welcome. Today, we're going to have a conversation about gender-based violence, domestic violence, and sexual assault. We want to understand the causes. We want to move beyond the conversation into action. And we've got an amazing panel of speakers who touch us in a variety of ways in relation to the work that they're doing, located around the globe. And before we do that, though, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to start our conversation with our hosts. Our hosts are Each One Hold One and Shining Light in the Darkness. So I'd like to invite Ed and Charmaine and Flo to bring their voices into the room and to ask, for me to ask you, why was this conversation important?
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It is a pleasure to be here with individuals across the globe that have taken time out of their day to have this important conversation. And it's an important conversation because it's not an issue that just affects one geographical area, one group of people. It's a global pandemic. And it's been going on for years. Offline, we were talking about, we hope that we'll see it end in our lifetime. We probably won't. But I want us to start making a difference in their lives. For me personally, I really want to reach young people because they are our future. And if we can educate them as to what's going on, what's happening, and maybe address some of that childhood trauma that they have potentially experienced, potentially we can stop and make a difference in the lives of so many others. So it's an important conversation. Anyone that's joining from wherever you are, please like, comment, and share this conversation with your network. It will touch at least one person. So thank you for joining us, Charmaine.
Thank you, Kabeshni and Ed. From an Each One Hold One perspective, I'm just going to give you a quick context as to why we were founded. We were founded by 3 women, actually, and 2 of them are actually on this platform. It's Kabeshni Govender, myself, and the 3rd co-founder is based in the UK. So although our head office is based here in Johannesburg, we transcend borders. And as women, we felt overwhelmed in terms of the gender inequality, overwhelmed in terms of cultural norms, overwhelmed in terms of workplace inequality, overwhelmed in terms of the situations we faced in our homes. And we got together in 2019, actually, and we go, we can't keep talking about it. We have to do something about it. And on the 17th of March 2020, just before COVID lockdown happened, we got together and decided we're launching. And it's a date that I'll never, ever forget for multiple reasons. And Kay is chairperson of GenderLinks that was launched on the 17th of March. On the 17th of March, 33 years ago, I was shot by my partner. My aunt was killed in the same incident, and my dad was shot twice. And gender-based violence is very, very personal to me. And we understand the dynamics women face and the economic hardship that they go through. So we created programs to actually help us, help women from a self-compassion perspective, kindness perspective, self-love perspective, and to be able to, because through our research and process, we got to realize women go back. And we need to ask the question, why? We go back because we don't love ourselves enough. We go back because we realize that we cannot stand financially on our own 2 feet. So therefore, the programs that we actually have is the Financial Freedom Program, as well as how to love yourself, how to stand in your power, and how to actually take charge of your life. So that's what Each One Hold One aims to do, and the impact that we actually have. And the mission today, and I'm so very excited, even though it's a heavy topic, is we have the caliber of speakers here. Martin, I read one of your articles in the Men's Voice magazine, where you ask such pertinent questions as to why is it that men, who are largely the perpetrators, are not the ones that given this financial support? Because if we heal men, then we'll have less women that are actually being impacted by gender-based violence. So this conversation excites me on multiple levels, because today it is all about action and how best we collectively come together and have the desired impact. So every single one of you, thank you for being here. Thank you for lending your voices, and thank you for the conversations and the impact we're going to have. within on this platform, but more especially to the people out there. So thank you. Thank you, Kay. Over to you, Flo. My favorite girlfriend.
Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I am Florida Duvall Dudley, the founder of Shining Light in Darkness. Just like with Charmaine, this is very personal to me as well for me. I'm a survivor of both intimate partner violence and sexual assault. And the why for me is why not? I know how it affected me internally and externally and changed the entire trajectory of my entire life. And once I started my healing process, I realized that there were more people out there like me that lost their voice and needed someone to step up and speak up on their behalf. And hence, Shining Light in Darkness, it was birthed in November the 14th, 2014. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it because I had just told my mom about what had happened to me maybe a couple of years ago. And so airing out my family's dirty laundry and my personal life, that was something that I did not want to do because I was a very private person. But as I start my healing journey, I realized that okay, I am going through this. I've tried conventional ways and unhealthy ways to deal and cope with both of these incidents and to no avail. And so, what helped my healing was educating myself, learning how that one incident on top of the other incidents changed the entire trajectory of my life. And so, by learning about the incident of sexual assault, domestic violence, it has helped me heal. And in the process of helping me heal, utilizing my voice to help others, and they're coming to us to speak on their behalf, also plays a part in my healing. The more I help others, the better that I feel. Not that I need it, but I know that I'm being that light in darkness. Like Charmaine said earlier, this is a heavy subject, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And Ed, I thank you for your support and supporting me through my healing. And Martin, I thank you for being a part of this because one of our taglines is "Men, will you please take a stand?" Granted, there are female perps that does this, but at the end of the day, men are the ones that actually contribute to this around the globe. And thank you for using your voice to help us understand the why behind it.
So, from this piece and from just listening to the founders of these organizations, you get a sense that we're talking about the personal at the level of a pandemic. This particular form of a pandemic is insidious in such a way that it sometimes confounds us. And so when we have this conversation, we like to look at the various systems in which it manifests. And when we look at trying to work our way out of it, we have a sense as to what that system approach might be. So let's start. Let's hear you. And Martin, I'm going to start with you. Martin Pelders, how have you, why? How have you come into this piece of work, Martin? Why is it relevant for you? What have you found has been the gems in the work? Where have you found that there are challenges? What do you bring that you can share with people across the globe that might help us find some insights in how we move forward? Martin.
What you're saying is I've got the next 2 hours, have I? Wow. That's hi, I'm Martin. Thanks, firstly, to everybody for inviting me to this platform. It's a subject that is passionate to me. It was a passion of mine. I got into this space because I'm a victim. I'm a victim of sexual abuse to start with. I was a victim of sexual abuse from the age of 5 to the age of 19. I then, in desperation, I suppose, finally found a partner who was also abusive. She was a narcissist, very controlling, very just very verbally, mentally, and emotionally abusive. And it was, I mean, the weird thing is that for me, it was a case of I didn't know I was a victim until in my 40s. I mean, you'd think, wow, I mean, you're a victim of sexual abuse. It's it's pretty obvious, and but it wasn't. It wasn't, and I can tell you that it was because nobody ever spoke about little boys being sexually abused and raped, especially by women, that you just think that you're a freak, right? So you push that emotion, you push those feelings and those memories so far down inside you, and they just churn away. They just keep churning away. You can push it down as far as like, we always have these sayings that say it's like, oh, just forget about it, it'll go away. No, it doesn't. It stays churning away in your subconscious, and it works on you, and it comes out, unfortunately for the majority of men, it comes out in the form of violence, or it comes out. I always say that men have been given 5 skills to deal with the problems that they have, or the traumas that they've had as children. And the 5 skills are addiction, so alcoholism, drugs, all that sort of stuff, anger, sex, silence, and sport. Those are the 5 skills that men have been given. Women have been taught to talk about things. Girls have been taught from a very young age. You talk about things. You express your emotions. You do all of this. The boys are shut up. Don't cry. Why are you such a baby? What are you, a little girl? Keep quiet. Don't talk about that. And this is why we learn from a very, very young age to suppress anything bad that's happened to us. And I did it incredibly well. Well, I thought I did it incredibly well. So as much as I say I was a victim of abuse, I was also the perpetrator of said abuse, because I was angry all the time. I was just an incredibly, excuse my language, pissed off man. And that came out in I mean, as you guys, I don't think you can hear it on this platform, but I have a large voice. I have a very large voice in terms of volume. And when I start shouting and screaming, you're going to step back in fear. And that was the thing. My daughter felt that wrath, unfortunately. She heard my loud, angry voice, and it impacted on her life. And I thank God that I have the time and the ability to be able to start healing that. And I want to read something that my daughter sent me, if you don't mind. This is, yeah. Let me see if I can control my emotions here. It says, in another universe, I meet my father when he is a child. We play catch in the woods, and as we play, he tells me he isn't allowed to cry. But sometimes the world hurts him and he doesn't know what to do with all that pain. So I give him a shoulder I give him the shoulder he needs to cry on, and he does. He does until the tears are done. Afterwards, I buy him an ice cream and I listen to his laugh, the glowing, warm laugh of a child who knows he is safe. I wish someone could have done that for him, been a kind, safe place for the child he used to be. Would it have made a difference? Would it have made a difference? And that, wow, for me, that was just a beautiful way of my daughter saying, Dad, I hear you, I see you, and I forgive you, and I understand you. And that was just such a blessing. But it is so true. The words of that poem, I sent it to my dad, who I'm blessed is still alive. He's 91, and he cried. My mother sent it back, and she goes, "It's incredibly beautiful, but incredibly sad." I said, but it's incredibly true, isn't it? That boys aren't given that space to talk about things, to cry about things, to express their emotions and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of why I ended up getting into this eventually, because on the Oprah Winfrey show, Tyler Perry and 200 men started talking about their sexual abuse. And in turn, they gave me permission to start talking about my sexual abuse. And I'm hoping that my story will, again, give others the courage to talk about their abuse. And as soon as we can get that pain out of our minds and out of our bodies, we can begin to mend, and we can sort of quell the anger that we have felt for so long.
Hilary, you also work with children and have been an activist for many, many years. Tell us your connection to this piece.
Firstly, I want to say on behalf of all women, Martin, I apologize for what you that you endure and go through. It's not much to say because nothing can take that scar away. But you are a survivor and have risen above it. And I am very proud to be your friend and be on this platform with you. I know your story. At our conference, you spoke about it and it just touched everyone so deeply. So I apologize on behalf of all females. What you have been through should not have happened.
Thanks, Hilary.
So going back to what got me here, I was abducted at the age of 13. Thank God for my sister. I'm here today. And being God's calling on my life, coming out of corporate for 32 years, I've gone into this full time, but always been involved in the humanitarian space with regards to orphanages, fighting alongside in the anti-apartheid struggle. My parents were big activists. My dad was murdered by the apartheid regime when I was 15. Then seeing lots of GBV take place within my family, around me in my community. Short of death was my sister. And then a very, very close friend of my daughter, Karabo Mokwena, the late Karabo, was brutally murdered by a boyfriend, chopped and then burnt in Sandton. That hit us and still hits us cold. So those are the things, and rescues of children from trafficking, missing children that I've been involved with. That's what drove me and got me to where I am today and being an activist. I've always been involved with many organizations, been on management boards, substance abused women that have resultantly gotten to that point, and many of them were trafficked. And working with children, little boys and girls in the orphanages under our wing of ACT Africa, I have seen a lot. And even before that, before this organization even existed, being in the orphanages, we have seen a lot. And when Matthew Mensah, I met Matthew, that was 2015, the work he's done across Africa, stop child trafficking, anti-malaria, poverty issues with governments across the portal, it all resonated. We just clicked in the work that we were doing, and we decided, following the Karabo Mokwena Foundation, all the work we're doing on human trafficking, child trafficking, GBV, poverty, you name it, we need to solidify it in terms of legalities. So as 2019 is when ACT Africa was birthed, but the work was long before that. Yeah. And this is where we are today.
I want us to keep with some of these personal pieces and grow to the next level of system. And I know, Samkelo, you work with young people trying to understand what some of the cultural pieces are, where we have the connections in family systems or dysfunctional family systems. Samkelo, can you talk to us a little bit about the work that you do with Sibosisizwe, and let us know how it is that you guys are starting to work with young people to move and to deal with some of the pain and uncover what it is that is at the root of what we're dealing with.
Okay, guys. Greetings, colleagues. For lack of a better word, greetings, colleagues. My name is Samkelo Mazibuwo. I live and reside in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. I am one of the mentors of Sibosisizwe, which is an NPO. Basically, what Sibosisizwe means, in direct translation, it means we are waking up the nation. Hence the word Sibusa, meaning that we are waking somebody up. Isizwe meaning the nation. Sibosisizwe is an NPO that's a year and a month old now. Yes, through the leadership of Umam Dudu Tabete, So, in a nutshell, what civil society does and what we do as mentors is that we mentor young adolescents, young boys that come from a home where there are no fathers present. Basically, we are there just to nurture them and to mentor them as mentors, and also to be that father figure that they need in their homes as well. And also, we are part of a group where we engage with all these young men. I would say young men because they want to grow up to be young men as well. So when civil society started, we started with 30 learners from grade 8 till grade 10. When we started, we approached a university called Mangosuthu University of Technology. It's called MUT. It's also based in Durban. When we approached them, we asked them for a facility and also a venue where we could have a camp with all these 30 young men as well. So in doing so, we had a camp, and myself and the other 5 mentors that were present, we just wanted to address issues that we are faced with as a nation, and also issues that we go through in terms of us where we grow up, because I mean it's quite different between from us in SA and from other people that are in the US. And also we targeted schools that are in the townships, because when you look at states, that's where everything is, well, it originates in the sexual assaults, GBV, and whatever the case may be. So in targeting those learners, we then had a camp. It was a 5-day camp where we were sharing things that these young men go through at home and also at schools and all those such things. And maybe what I could what we found out as mentors is that there's a lot of domestic violence happening in the homes where these boys are, and domestic violence in a term that it could be from mother to a daughter or from a mother to a son, because our target was that we wanted men that do not have a father figure at home. And also there's a lot of things originating from that, because as a young man that grows up without a father, you tend to do all those things that are rather considered out of order and all those things, etc. So us as mentors and us as the civil society, we are there just to bridge the gap of being the present father that these guys need, and also just to be there in terms of guiding them, in terms of decision making wise, in terms of schooling, in terms of behavior, in terms of their own character as well. Because I think I believe that in order to address such issues that we are faced with, we need to tackle them from a grassroots level. And what better way to tackle them from the young men where they just know they just recently found out what's the right, what's wrong, what's right, and just recently found out the difference between right and wrong. So as a civil society, we are there to tackle the problems that we are faced with as a society and community, but we are also tackling them from the grassroots level, because when these kids grow up, they grow up to be one of these statistics that we see on each and every day. And the statistics are rising. We look at the youth as well. So these guys are young. We're just trying to nurture them. And as a civil society, we are there just to, okay, the elephant, well, this problem with the elephant. So we're just trying to baby steps, and slowly but surely we're going to get there. So as a civil society, that's what we do. We nurture young men in terms of their own behavior, and also addressing the issues such as GBV, sexual and whatnot, sexual assault, and as you have mentioned, shame. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what this is all about. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank y'all. I'm honored to be in this conversation this morning where I am in Texas. So wow, y'all, I'm not a part of an organization. I am a survivor of childhood sexual assault and a domestic violence survivor that just refuses to shut up and sit down. I became homeless during the pandemic as a result of domestic violence, and I was at a homeless shelter in Houston, Texas for about 3 months during the pandemic when everything was shut down. And I vowed to my creator if he would help me, to tap into the strength that I'd always heard about as a little girl, that I would use my voice to shed light in a way that it provides awareness, hope, and inspiration. So I was nodding, oh my gosh, to know that this is a global pandemic, right? So I've had the honor of being on, BBC News and in House, all these platforms. But what I've recognized, you all, is until people understand the economic impact, and I'm saying people like corporate, the people with the influence and the dollars to go behind this, we're going to continue as a society to think that this is a family issue. And when Moraine, when you said, listen, you all, I get amped, I get pumped, because it's not a family issue. If we empower women, we empower communities. And oh, by the way, when we continue giving the platform to men, when I see y'all men on this morning, y'all, I instantly see hope, because we can't just keep addressing it from one side and thinking that we're going to solve the problem. But when we have these hard, raw conversations like we have this morning with both men that are supporters and men that are victims of sexual assault and victims of the domestic violence, I think, wow, this grandbaby that was just birthed into the world, this week, she might have hope that by the time she becomes an adult, that we would have laid the foundation to eradicate domestic violence. So I'm just like, wow, to know that this is transcending beyond, just the United States, and that we can come together and have solution-based conversations. It's like, oh my gosh. And Martin, man, I'm like, I need to have you and Shemeko in the conversations here in the US to solve the problem, because this is what I know for certain. When I came home, you all, 13 years old and pregnant, there was some community leaders that shunned me, but then there was some people in the community, to include my grandmother, which is now an ancestor. She passed away in May. That when I was able to share my story of me and my sister surviving molestation, and people started to understand the root cause and the why of why I became promiscuous and was pregnant 4 more additional times by the time I was 19, people wrapped their arms around me. Some did, right? And they supported me. And there was a village that rallied around me to create a support system that allowed me to defy the odds, meaning, yeah, I was 14 years old and pregnant, but I managed to get a master's degree and all these accolades. And I can't help but to know, not think, but to know, when we rally around men that are survivors of sexual assault and survivors of domestic violence, that guess what? Yeah, the studies show that violence is a learned behavior, but when we give them the safe space to say, listen, I'm hurting. And my trauma response, your trauma response was to be promiscuous, but my trauma response is to hit you, is to devalue you with my words. Then we allow them the ability to unlearn, well, first of all, to be vulnerable, to say it, and to unlearn that behavior and replace that with healthy mechanisms, healthy ways of loving the people that they love. They just don't have the tools. So again, I'm honored, y'all, and I'm like, Mark, I can spend the next 3 hours in sharing my heart in what I know to be certain that address these issues. So that's why the economic impact, you all, is the so what to people that have the influence and the economic means to do something about it.
Thank you so much for that, Jamie. And I'm hearing that the violence may happen in homes, but it is not a family issue. And perhaps if we can shift the conversation into something that matters to people, finance, economy, Charmaine, maybe we can get people to pay attention, right? So I'd like to give you all, I'm going to use Jamie's term of phrase, to engage with each other and I'm going to kick off our conversation between us, right? I'm going to start with you, Martin, where we started. I'm going to ask you, if not these coping things around addiction, anger, sex, silence, and sport, then what, Martin? How do we channel young men into, if they have been impacted, if they have been hurt, how do we channel them? How do we teach them to unlearn, using, again, what Jamie has brought into the room? Where do we start?
Well, firstly, we got to tell these young men that they're allowed to be victims, because that is the very basis of everything. You know, and I know everybody in the States goes with the 1 in 4, 1 in 6, 1 in 4 women, 1 in 6 boys have been sexually abused. In fact, in South Africa, it's more boys than girls. So more boys are sexually abused every year than girls. And that's been researched in 2 major studies now. So we know that essentially we have nearly half the male population of South Africa has suffered some form of sexual abuse by the age of 18. It's 44%. So we need to firstly turn around and tell the truth, right? Boys can be victims. Unfortunately, the perpetration on these boys is, the majority of them are women, and we need to be honest about these things. And so we need to say, you know, I mean, there's this whole cascading effect because we kind of tend to floss over the truth. And I always say to people, what about the girls that have been sexually abused by women? You know, where's their space to talk about things? They don't have any, you know. What about the boys? They don't have that space to be able to talk about things. So we need to be honest about things, and we need to create these spaces where boys are allowed to be victims. Then we've got to stop the whole way we raise boys. You've got to be a warrior. You've got to be this tough guy. You know, you have to be this cowboy that doesn't cry, etc., etc. And we need to allow boys to be vulnerable. We need to kind of get away from the construct that boys are somehow going to turn out to be homosexual if they're raised with emotions and feelings, you know. God, I wish I had emotions and feelings. You know, it was just, I had like, I opted for the alcohol and the sex. Those were my ways of expressing things, and the shouting, the anger. So I wish my life was different. You know, if my life was different, my child's life would have been different. If my child's life was different, then my grandson's life is going to be different, and so it cascades. You know, and we know. I mean, these are just facts from if we start looking at things like epigenetics. You know, I mean, the sins of the father are passed down to the sons. They're definitely down 7 generations. You know, it's a fact. So what your dad used to do, you know, I mean, I'm starting a recovery center, and I'm like, I want to interview the parents. I want to see what their issues are, and then I'll know exactly what the problem is with the son, the addict, you know. So there's just a whole mess. It's just so it's turned into this gender war. It's just one big mess up, you know. It's just horrible, and we need to kind of really change the way that we think about things. And I'm saying, like in South Africa, we spend 5 billion rand a year fixing broken women, and we spend nothing on fixing broken boys. Yet we have more broken boys than we do broken girls. Now, if we fix the broken boys, you know, I spoke to one of the researchers, and these guys went and they interviewed 126,000 boys around the country in 9 official languages, 1,192 schools. It was a massive study, and what they were looking for was a link between the spread of HIV/AIDS and sexual abuse. And I said, Ari, so what was the most shocking thing that you found out of all your research? What is the thing that punched you in the gut the most? And he says, Martin, was the fact that these boys are 4 times more likely to perpetrate a rape. And I went, well, there we go, isn't it? Isn't that the root as to why sexual crimes and gender-based violence and everything just go escalate year on year on year on year on year? Because we're not talking to these little boys and saying, hey, you know, I know that happened to you, but it's not cool. You can't go out and do it on, did it hurt you? You know, and talk to them and heal them, create, you know, Hillary had a conference and I went up and did a talk, and it was like God inspiration, because I just kept saying, where are the rape crisis centers for boys? Where are the rape crisis centers for boys? And there are none. There are absolutely none. And those that say they do support men and women, through their advertising, they tell us a totally different story. Through their advertising, they show us victims of little girls, and they talk and they get their pronouns and everything mixed up, and never do they mention boys. We are mainly focused on girls, we are focused on girls and all that sort of stuff. But where, if more boys are being sexually abused in this country, then where are the rape crisis centers for these boys? Where are the safe spaces for these boys to go in and heal so that they don't grow up angry and take it out on the people who hurt them? Because if the majority of the perpetrators are women, who do you think the boys are going to hurt? You know? And it's not a justification, absolutely. I mean, God forbid, there but for the grace of God go I. You know, my life could have been totally different. I could have been a child rapist or a woman beater or something. Had my life just taken one small little turn somewhere, I would have been one of the bad guys. You know, but thank heavens I wasn't. And so yeah, we need to right at the crux of all of this is healing broken children. We can't even go in and say, you know, because if the main perpetrators of sexual violence on boys are women, then who hurt them? This is a learned experience. This is a learned behavior.
I'm so grateful for your authentic share, actually, and it is for the reason that we actually got you into this platform to have a very honest conversation about the reality out there. For me, I have to be quite honest. I think I was living under a rock. I didn't actually realize that 44% of boys in South Africa are subject to sexual abuse, and largely by women. I mean, that's news to me. You know, it feels to me that we learn every day. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but what you've said so many powerful things, actually. The one is we all need to heal. But in addition to healing, it has to start with forgiveness, actually. Because if we harbor hate, being women or men, what do? We're so angry and we lash out and we want to hurt people. And they say, hurt people. So one of the action points is for us to go, how is it that we create those safe spaces? How is it that we teach the art of forgiveness? Because when we forgive, we lighten the load, and we have the ability to be able to fly in ways that we want to, and not burden, but what actually happened to us. So it's a conversation I think we all need to have around this platform and even wider to understand what is the one or two things we can do to influence that change. Thank you for joining us, Neri. Neri is one of our board members on Each One Hold One, and she's an advocate, like a proper lawyer, so she fights GBV cases. When I say proper lawyer, I mean advocate. We're all advocates for change. So thank you, Martin. That was powerful.
Narisha, Charmaine indicated that you work with these pieces in a very hands-on way. What have you heard here that you would like to explore a little bit more?
Thanks, Kubeshni. I did work with victims of crime for many, many years. And it's very rewarding, especially when you get all these convictions and people are sentenced to long-term imprisonment. But now I'm on the other side. I'm defending, I try not to do too much of criminal work, but I do defend accused when I look carefully at the matter before I decide to take it on, basically. And I realize that there's two sides to a story. I'm living it now. I'm experiencing it. So Martin's pain is very real. A lot of women get away with a lot of things because there's so much of emphasis and so much of protection of women's rights. There are women who tend to abuse that attention. And I'm seeing it day after day after day. So in as much as gender-based violence affects women, it affects men in other ways too. So like Charmaine says, the percentage that Martin reported is actually an eye-opener for a lot of us because nobody brings this to light. Nobody educates us and informs us that this is actually what is happening on the ground. Because people, boys, are too scared to talk. They're expected to be macho. They don't express feelings as girls do. And victims, whether girls or boys, often their experience comes with threats. And these threats induce them not to speak out. And that is the sad reality. So everybody is affected. And I think speaking on a platform like this brings to light what actually goes on and how girls, boys, women, men, and others are affected by gender based violence and domestic violence. But I think what is very important and what people are not focusing on is that, in as much as there needs to be consequences for offenders of domestic violence and gender based violence, there must be equal consequences for those who abuse the system, who abuse the privileges, who abuse the attention. Just to give you an example, with regard to family matters, divorce matters, men are placed on the back foot because they are accused of gender based violence. They are accused of domestic violence. And I have no problem if it's legitimate. But when it is concocted, then it is a problem. And it becomes a power play as well. These men, once accused, now, in as much as it is tried that the accused are innocent until proven guilty, but once you're an accused, once you're arrested, once you're put into the box, it is more likely and it is more evident from the way you are treated that you are presumed guilty until you prove yourself innocent. We are not working in an ideal justice system. We might not even get justice dispensed, but it's people, like Charmaine says, advocates for gender-based violence, for justice, who need to bring this to the attention of ordinary South Africans.
This is the reason why Shining Light and Darkness exists. We focus on the underserved victims and survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. Men being one of those categories. We have 5 different subsets: the women of color, men, people with disabilities, veterans, active duty, and the LGBTQIA plus community. These people right here, we already deal with a lot on a day-to-day basis. And when you add a traumatic experience to that makes living harder, because you know what was done to you was not right. And then when you reach out for help, there's no one to help you. It's not right. And Shining Light in Darkness is exactly what it says, a light in darkness. Because being a survivor of something like that, when it's your innocence, it's your purity, it's the most intimate part of you, and someone violates you and take that away from you, and then when you try to come forward and talk about it, they belittle you just because you're a man. And in this world that we live in, men are not supposed to display any type of feelings or emotion. But that is so unhealthy for the men. Women, they're taught to be very feminine. They are not supposed to be show any type of masculinity or anything that would represent a man. But guess what? When we're both experiencing the same thing, and all you want to do is heal and move forward and get past this incident, but the world is telling you everything that you cannot do and what you can do, but the ones that are dictating this has never experienced this a day in their lives. We have people and legislators representing and passing bills on our behalf about something that they know nothing about, and they don't care to learn about gender-based violence, sexual assault, domestic violence, because it hasn't affected them, so they say. But if everybody was to ask their family members or someone that's close to them, have you ever experienced sexual assault, domestic violence, gender-based violence? They may say no. But do you know someone that has experienced this or gone through this? Yes. Have that conversation. We can have that conversation, but as victims and survivors of this, we need more than conversation, because we know the toll that it has taken on our livelihood and how detrimental it is to our health. And I thank every organization out there that exists for this, but we shouldn't exist. Let's be real. There should not be an organization telling people not to take advantage of someone sexually. There should not be an organization out there to help people being abused by people that's supposed to love them. Because intimate partner violence, gender-based violence, and sexual assault, this does not happen with strangers. These incidents happen to us by people that we love or close to us, that we call friend, associate, colleague. One thing that you said that is accurate and true today is healing, regardless to the support groups, therapy, the mental health, all of that. That's fine to help us. But as survivors, the most important thing for us to do when it comes to starting our healing journey is first the awareness that it happened. The biggest thing, second biggest thing, forgiving yourself, realizing that it's not your fault. You didn't ask for it. And I don't care how young or how old, nobody asked to be violated. Third thing, self-love. When you acknowledge it, you forgive yourself. And I'm not going to tell anybody that they have to forgive the victim, because guess what? You can forgive the perp that did this, but guess what? You still could be feeling some type of way. But in the world that I live in, what I tell all of my survivors and victims is acknowledge that this happened to you. Forgive yourself because it wasn't your fault. Love yourself, regardless to how icky you may feel. Self-love, self-preservation to begin the healing journey to become a better you, and advocate for others so they won't have to endure what you've endured or what I've endured.
It makes me come back to this notion that patriarchy is something that impacts men and women. It impacts all of us, and its manifestation keeps us bound in these cycles of violence. Are there any other voices that would like to speak to this? And I remind you that part of our aim of having this conversation is having the discussion about what do we do, what next, what is within our control, what is within the sphere of our activism, as we look at this and how it manifests at the various levels of system that we live in.
We work at mission is saving lives through awareness and education, and our focus is prevention of and breaking the cycles of GBVF and human trafficking. So with that being said, we focus before the assault takes place. So we try and prevent that. And going back to grassroots level, which is exactly what Martin said, is focusing there. Because we're sitting with a broken world population, essentially. And with the cycle continuing and continuing, so we're continuously being putting a plaster on. That's all we're doing. We're putting plasters on this. But there's no real healing that is taking place. And there's no point from where we're deciding that we need to heal. So there's two places. And again, your perpetrator. So whether you're male or whether you're female, It doesn't matter. The fact is something has happened to bring you from the point of where you were to being a point of being a perpetrator. What brought you to that point? And that was the essence of going back again to 2020, our conference for men that we had. And that is what we dealt with, that sore arm that nobody wants to deal with, that now's forgotten about. That arm is blue and purple and it's hitting out now because it's hurting. And that's what needs to deal with. So you need 2 points, grassroots level, which is your children. To break the cycle, you've got to start there because we're going to sit with the next generation. We're already sitting with it. We see it in the workplaces already with a new generation coming in and not being able to function optimally because they are so broken from within and within their families. You see the high rate of divorce because of all the social ills that are taking place, aside from poverty. Poverty, having no money, can happen at any time, but it's how you're going to deal with it. And we and the thing is, mindset is where it starts from. So it's no use. I can have the best laws in the country. I can have the best boundaries in place in my home and say you will not and you cannot and it should not and we can't, etc. But if the mind is not there, if that person has not gotten to that point of saying, I need to stop as a perpetrator, I need to stop allowing someone to abuse me, I will now, this needs to stop. The cycle is going to continue. And that's where it starts at mindset. And we've got to work at mindset. And to break the cycle in terms of each country, within your home, within your community, we've got to start with our children. Because I see it where I am. We sit with gangsterism at its height. I spoke to a school, I sat speaking to grade 6s and 7s a week ago. I had to contain my emotions. We sat with 2 major gangs, grade 6s and 7s are involved in. I don't know if you heard in South Africa about the fast guns from Westbury. They like Cape Town. And a gang called the Varados. These are the 2 gangs that these children are involved with. So I sat speaking to them. We had the Hawks in there, we had social development, and we had us as Act Africa in there speaking about all of these things. But you look at this one little boy in particular, he sat the whole time with his head between his legs. And I took my arms around and I asked him first, is he feeling ill or anything? He said no, but I could see the anger from within. And turned out he's a bully. He was taking a chair at the end of the day, pushing it against another little boy, but like really ramming it up against him. And the child called me. And I had to be firm with him despite what was happening. And I had to tell him, stop. There are consequences to your actions. And unfortunately, as small as they are, they need to realize there is no excuse. Yes, all the abuses happen, whatever is happening, but we each have a choice, and that's where mindset comes in. We know right from wrong. And at that moment, we need self-control. We decide, and we know that, and we decide, yes, I'm going to now do this act or no. Another example, at one of our orphanages, one of my orphanages, young girl hurt another little girl. She pulled her arm so hard. This little girl was in tears. Called her and she said to me, she knows I have anger issues. So you see the loophole that's being used. She knows, so she shouldn't. So I said, stop right there. That is no excuse. Your anger issue is going to land you up in jail. What if she goes and open up a case against you? What you did was assault. And you can have a criminal record as small as you are. You will be taken. You are over 12 years old. So those are the things, again, mindset. And I taught her and I said to her, you need to decide, is this anger going to control you or are you going to control the anger? Where do you see your life in another year, not even 5 years from now? Do you see yourself still saying to somebody and having everybody tramp on thin ice around you and telling them, you know, I have anger issues? That's not a reason. That's not. So that's where we've got to say to perpetrators, and again, even if you are as victims as well, you need to decide, am I going to allow this to continue happening? Because the help is out there. It's not that
Absolutely.
the help is not there. The help is there. We've got to take it. You can take the horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink.
Guys, GBV is here, and sexual assault is also here. It's real, and it's going to be here unless we address it from a grassroots level. With us as a civil society, the reason why we targeted boys, rather young men, I prefer to call them young men, sorry for using that word. The reason why we are addressing young men is because that if you look at the township that we are working in, we are working at Umlazi. Umlazi, I think it's the second biggest township in South Africa after also Isoweto. So in terms of stats, that's where the highest crime rate comes from. That's where the highest stats of GBV comes from. That's where the highest sexual assaults, car hijacking, and all those things come from. So we are fortunate enough that our founder, as is Sipho Sisizwe, is from Umlazi, and also she has raised an incredible young man all by herself. So the reason why we targeted Umlazi is because we've realized that we conducted our statistics as a civil society and also through the help of the municipality. And then we found that we have a lot of households without fathers. Not only fathers, but then we also have a lot of number of households without father figures in their home. And should the father be there, you might find that the father is not actually doing what the father should do. So upon doing that, we decided to target a few schools. Currently, we're working with 2 schools, and 30 boys, 15 from each school, 15 from each school. So that makes it 30. And the boys that we took are boys that do not have, maybe the father is not present at home. He could be somewhere. And also, maybe the father is not necessarily present at home as well. So upon doing that, and upon myself and other mentors spending time with them, we did realize that GBV is a real thing, and it happens not only to women but also through the boys that we were with, because upon sharing things with them and engaging with them and also participating in those activities, you'll find that there are certain boys that are being abused in their homes. The father is not there, and also you might find that the mother takes out her frustrations upon the only child that's there, and that's real. And so we're just trying to bridge that gap where, in as much as the fathers are not at home, to maybe be that father figure and also lead the home in a way that is suitable for the young man. But also you'll find that we are also dealing with the fact that the mothers they are doing exactly the opposite thing that mothers should do as well. So as Isivo sees, as I've said, that we are only a year old, and we know for sure that we cannot solve all the issues that we are faced with as a society, but baby steps, slowly but surely we are getting there. And I'm grateful to all the young men that we chose, the 30, that came to our camp. We spent, I think it was 4 days, if not 5. With them, we engaged, we did some activities, and also I had a one-on-one with them, with every individual. And what I found that is that GBV does exist in their household at home. And you'll find that some of them even, they're in a state where they just want to get away from home. And that's how we end up with Amapara, as that's the word we use for people that are displaced from home. And in Durban, we call them Amapara, those guys that live on the streets. So, but I think there were 2 guys that they were fed up of being at home because they were being physically abused. They were just fed up, and through the help of Mom Tutu and the founders of Civil Society, and also through the help of our social workers and all those things, we managed to intervene and also maybe solve the case. But guys, I must commend Martin. In order to address the GBV issue, I think we need to start at grassroots level. And in terms of grassroots level, we need to start at these children that we are raising as we are maybe parents and as we are maybe father figures to the community, to the society at large. And also as we are human beings as well. The way we conduct ourselves, I think that's the way that we are going to be able to solve such things. But it's going to take time. We're not going to be able to do it overnight. And yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Samkelo, I just want to, sorry, there's all these things on here. Like, what's going on? Sorry. Yeah, I just want to commend the work that you're doing is amazing. I mean, and we need more of this. But I also want to highlight furthermore the, you know, the some of the issues that you raised. South Africa, and it's a legacy of apartheid, right? It's just one of those things, and I think in a sense, it was almost designed to rip apart families. You know, and it's like it's very specific to South Africa. And I remember reading something one day, and we have a place called the Labour Museum in the bottom of Johannesburg here, and there was a guy, one of the guys wrote on there, and he said, "I hope my sons are not kept from their wives like their father was from their mother." And when we start getting into it, I believe our latest stats are that we have 67% fatherlessness in this country. These are boys that are being raised without the masculine guide, positive masculine influence. And, you know, and you can say, I mean, we can go into all sorts of things, and but the research is there. We know what happens to children who don't grow up with both parents. It's a fact. I mean, they're more inclined to be addicts. They're more inclined to fail at school. They're more inclined to end up in prison. They're more inclined to be promiscuous, teenage pregnancy. The list goes on and on and on and on and on.
All of you raise such pertinent points, actually, on multiple levels. And what I'm hearing is the unemployment and the economic situation in South Africa is contributing largely to the GBV stats and the anger that many people actually face. So in terms of, we have policies and we have interventions that needs to actually be implemented. Less talk, more action, especially from governmental levels. And I mean, in terms of Moran's share as well about the economic opportunities that needs to be created for everybody. Because if you're living in poverty, you're angry, you're frustrated, you're comparing yourself to other people. And we can talk beyond just gender-based violence, domestic violence. We talk about violence across race groups, violence amongst people. So it's quite a complex situation we find ourselves in. And, you know, I'm still going to go anchor down to the concept of love and forgiveness, because in South Africa, there's a lot of trauma as a result of apartheid, lots of trauma that we haven't quite worked through it. And healing is critical, but there's so much more that we need to do. And, you know, I'm going to go back to Moran's comment. It's the simple things that we can do that has the greatest effect. So if we can just understand what are the one or two simple things that we're each going to do. I mean, I commit to being a champion for change, a champion for love, a champion for joy. Even my haters, I give them kindness and a smile. It's hard sometimes, but it's necessary. And you can bring them around, actually. If I'm going to share quite a personal story, my husband grew up without a dad. His dad died when he was 11 years old. He was an addict. He was an alcoholic when I met him. But if you can actually just break down as to the why and how it is that you're going to support people irrespectively, trust me, they can be changed. So we just need to understand what our role is and how is it that we're going to pour into the world, and we'll make this world a better place. So, Kay, I think I'm talking too much. I'm going to hand over to Samkelo, if I may.
Absolutely. And Samkelo, you're going to start us off to do around the room, to just reflect on what you take out of this conversation. And I'm really appreciating that Charmaine has connected with this notion of a commitment. Yes, because we work at multiple systems, all of us. here. And we make commitments that reflect in our behavior. And so as you speak, Samkelo, I'm curious about this piece around the commitment and what at an institutional level, what at a personal level you feel lands as a commitment for you and your organization. Samkelo, and then we'll go around the room. I'll call you out to bring those statements to close up our conversation today. Samkelo.
Okay, thank you, Chair, the youngest guy to comment on the platform. Guys, I think according to stats, we are aware that almost 70% of children in South Africa grow up without their biological father present in their home. They may be present somewhere else, but then being present in the home, it means a lot to that child, per se. And also, according to stats, in 2017, the registered birth was 62% of, I think it was about 989 births. So 989,000 births. 62% of those numbers, they had no reliable information about who's the father of their child was. So, guys, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that we as fathers, I mean, I'm a father myself, we need to be present in order to address this GBV issue. As fathers, we need to be present in the home, and also we need to be present in terms of decision making, and also we need to be present in our character as well, because how we conduct ourselves, the children that look up to us are the future. So if I myself am gonna raise a hand to Charmaine and do whatever that I can do to her, if I have a son, he's probably gonna do the same thing. So in order to address issues related to GBV, it needs to start at home. How we conduct ourselves. If I'm married, how I show my affection to my wife, that means my son will show the same thing to another woman. And how I conduct myself when I get home from work, coming from work with all those issues and trouble from work, I know that, okay, now is the time where I get home. I don't need to bring all those troubles into the home, because guys, our kids, they reflect us. They are a duplicate of what we do. We are aware of that, and I've seen it in terms of the camp that we had. The camp was it was 5 days. How I conducted myself during the camp, you could see that there were a couple of guys that were following whatever trend that I was doing. If I was lenient with them, they were lenient with them as well. So how we portray ourselves in terms of GBV, in terms of sexual assault, in terms of all these issues, it has to begin with us, and it also has to begin at home, where we are always present as well. And Tina, as a civil society, we are very, very fortunate that we have mentors such as Umam Tutu. Apparently, she's not here today. And we have such mothers and also such fathers that are a true reflection of what a mother and a father should actually be and what they should do. You know what I mean? And also to us as mentors, whatever that we project to them is what we see our founders doing. So this becomes a chain, and it trickles down all the way to the youngest person that is maybe in that food chain as well.
Just wanted to add to what Super said, very importantly, that the children mimic what happens. A week ago, we had a case of a 4-year-old that raped a 3-year-old. So everyone's focus is on, yeah. And a 4-year-old cannot penetrate, so he used his fingers. So they were concentrating always on the little 3-year-old. So I said, the 3-year-old is going to be taken care of. The 4-year-old is the problem. The 4-year-old's in trouble. You now vilifying this 4-year-old. I said, you cannot. There's no way you can vilify. This child is doing what's been done to him and what he's seeing, what's his surroundings, whatever's happening. Exactly what Samkelo is saying. So I said, this little boy needs all the help in the world. I said, that's where our focus needs to be, because this little one has been now going through the healing process and forgetting about this little boy. Except this little boy how many other kids hasn't he fingered aside from this little girl because of what he's been through? He's doing what he has seen and what he is experiencing. So, and where else can it be happening? Because a 4-year-old is not, and it's not in a township that just happened where, children, it's happened in quite an affluent area. So the 4-year-old, I said, is not visiting home to home to home by himself. He goes with his parents or his caregivers or wherever. So wherever it is, it's somebody that is known to him that is doing this to him. So yes, that is exactly with the children mimic exactly what is happening to them and what they are seeing and what their surroundings are about.
Thanks, Hilary. And I'm hearing a theme perhaps emerge around in these last two inputs in terms of modeling. What do we model as parents? And if we're modeling particular things that our children are mimicking, that is actually a really important piece. And I'm hearing Samkelo say that how young men land, how fathers land, and you use the term, Samkelo, which is beautiful. You say present in character, not just being there as a physical presence, but being present in character. I'm hearing is something that's much more deeper and much more meaningful in relation to what it is that we're trying to do and what might move the needle. Thank you, Samkelo. Thank you, Hilary. I want to go to Jamie now. Jamie, Samkelo chatted and he used the word amapada, referring to homelessness, to men who become disenfranchised for whatever reason and find themselves without shelter. And your story very much is about how domestic violence forced you into a very similar circumstance. Your closing thoughts on this conversation, Jamie, as we wrap up today.
Wow, y'all, I have a lot of processing to do. Besides being just grateful to be a part of this rich, very intentional conversation, the economic empowerment piece. Someone said, if you're living in poverty, you're angry. Literally, the only thing, you all, that set me apart from many of the women that I was in the shelter with was my ability to earn a living. That was it. Not that I'm stronger, not that I'm smarter, not that I'm prettier, because there were some pretty powerful women I was in that shelter with. But now that I'm on the other side, I've realized it's the economic piece. I still had income coming in from my job and my career that I was able to set aside as I was at the shelter, so that when I transitioned out of the shelter, I could economically stand on my own 2 feet. And so that has to apply to everyone. The person that's causing the harm, the person that's receiving the harm. And I love that beautiful statement in terms of even giving young people a purpose by giving them job training. Why do we have to start when we're 18 or 19? Let's do it as soon as it's legal, for them to provide, to make a living. So yeah, that economic piece, you all, because when we have the economic means, then not only does it give us resources, I would go so far to say, as a man, I think, well, in my personal experience, I've only dated men. That's how men, prove themselves as a provider as a man, is their ability to provide. So it's that economic piece, and still providing safe places for people that's received harm and people that's done harm, to say, listen, y'all, I'm not okay, and I want to be okay. Can you all wrap your community arms around me there, so that I can live the life of love and abundance and joy that hey, my creator, the creator of the universe, your God, whatever you believe in, designed me to live. So I hope that answers the question. Feel like I was all over the place. I'm just y'all, this has been beautiful.
We need to include everybody. We need to stop making it about one gender or the other. We need to say this is a human problem, not a gender issue. And we need to start including everybody and being fully supportive of everybody. There shouldn't be better treatment for one or the other. You know, in my heart, that's kind of my dream, that we're all in this together. We're on this little thing called Earth, which is a blip in the universe, and we need to really start working together to make a change. Taking hands, as opposed to, you know, I see nowadays there's these like the radical feminists, then you got the NGTOWs and the red pills and the this and the that, and some are for Andrew Tate and some are for Russell Brand and some are for this, and it was why aren't we just for each other? Why are we just not supporting each other and building and encompassing and as Charmaine says, loving each other? And if we could just get to that, people, things would just be so much better. Yeah, that's my closing thought. And you know, to everybody that's on this panel, you guys are all freaking awesome, right? I love activists. People who are not afraid to voice their opinions. Thank you, without shame, fear, or retribution. Just say it. And we need a lot more us's in the world. We need a lot more activists. So yeah, thanks for the platform, everybody. It's been amazing meeting everybody and just listening to all the stories. And I want to say, okay, I want to end up with this tragic story as well. So I've been counseling a guy for many years now, and he phoned me in an absolute spin the other day, and he said to me, listen, my daughter tried to commit suicide last night. So I was like, whoa, okay. And I went to see him, and we sat and we started talking, and I said, do we know why? You know, and she took 118 tablets. So I don't know the specifics, but she's alive, thank heavens. And I said, do we know why? And he says, yes, my oldest son raped her when she was 2. So I was like, whoa, okay. Anyway, so we just sat and chatted. And later I met up with his wife. Now just look at this. This is the cycle, right? He's a victim of sexual abuse. His wife is a victim of sexual abuse. His oldest son was a victim of sexual abuse, who then sexually abused the daughter, who also then sexually abused the sister. So one family has been impacted by this horrendously. Now the parents are in the situation where they have to, I've got to care for my children that have now tried to commit suicide and have been raped, sexually abused, but by our son. Now, how do we punish somebody that we love? How do we get things, you know, to get fixed up? How do we sort this out? You know, it's just it's heartbreaking. I'm looking at these parents going like, you know, effectively, according to the law, you need to report your son. But how do you do that as a parent? You know, what do we do? And this is what happens. And it's not just an isolated situation. This is happening in thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of homes around the world. And we really need to kind of bandy together to find a way to change the narrative. You know, we got to stop the cycle of abuse, and we got to start somewhere. And for me, it's through the telling of our stories that we're going to create that awareness, and you know, by being open and honest about what happened to us. I think that's a great start.
Hillary was correct by saying we're basically putting plasters on. There's no healing. And Flo says that we need more than conversation. Moran came across as being so dynamic. You know, that passion is what is needed to drive something against gender-based violence. And if more of us had that passion, the world would change. So we need to start with the children to make sure that this doesn't happen to younger children. When I look at my kids who are 6 and 3.5 years old, I see them being so innocent. I can't imagine how any parent or any adult would interfere with the minds of these children in a sexual way. They are too innocent for that. Another thing that Hillary spoke about was choice. We need self-control. The girl that spoke about her anger and the other child knowing that she has anger issues, she did not have a proper role model or proper parenting or adults in her life. So what she lacks is emotional intelligence. And due to that, it becomes a problem of the other children that she associates with. So that is also not fair. But guys, you are also instrumental in this fight. The problem is bigger than even we see. Martin, congratulations for where you are. But like Charmaine and I said, you brought new things to light. Use journalism. They have a purpose to bring information to the public. If you guys don't talk through the right reporting channels, then people would never know. But to all of you, all the best. Really, you really are dynamic and you will make a difference. Thank you.
Very much, Nimisha. We're going to give our hosts the opportunity to share their reflections on an incredible conversation. Florida?
I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. Martin almost triggered me. I had to come off because it's personal. With me coming forward about my abuse, I found out about other family members, including males, and I wondered if I was making a difference within my family. And I was like, I'm helping everybody else, and I know what my family members, what they're enduring, and how can I be helping other people and I can't even do that? I was speaking with a therapist that we were going through the process of hiring to help survivors and victims that we help. And so she asked me some questions and I started talking, answering her questions. She's answering mine. And family came up. And she sparked the memory that I just took for granted when my cousin was calling me all the time regarding his incident and how bad he was going down the rabbit hole of trying to deal with this as well as taking care of his family. And his wife knows nothing about this. And I broke down in tears talking to that therapist because it was at that moment that I realized the impact that Shining Light in Darkness has, not just with strangers that I meet, but also my family members that are sitting back watching what I'm doing and commending me for using my voice and not being silent, and the accolades. And I said all of that to say is collaboration, because with me thinking about the impact that I'm making in everyone's else life and not my own family, had I not been collaborating with this therapist to bring her on to help other victims and survivors, I would have never realized the impact that I was playing within my family lineage. And I don't want to mispronounce his name, but the other guy, not Martin, when he said it starts at home, it starts young, it does. We have to be the ones not just breaking generation cycles for the world, but for our families. I could go through the framework that we have in order to have this collaboration for change. Truly, it does start at home. And when your solid foundation has been set and it's unmovable, then you can go forward within the world to make that impact, connecting with these key stakeholders, changing cultural societal shifts regarding the masculinities with men, with boys. And I just love what I do. I don't like how I came to it, but I'm grateful for it because I can be that light for others that can't do it for themselves or speak for themselves.
Thank you. Charmaine?
Thank you, Kabeshni. Thank you, Flo. Actually, thank you to every single one of you. You'll all landed such profound statements and so grateful. I mean, Moran, your share was just profound on so many levels. The institutional information that you share, your personal story. So thank you for sharing that. And I mean, my takeaway from that was largely it's simple things that we need to do that we can do that we can actually should be doing. So Mkelo, your share and your impact on those young lives, I can see them growing up into be amazing young men. So thank you for your contribution and the way you pour into the world. So, and I mean, you have us as supports and sisters. So if you ever need our voices into that room, call on us. Narisha, you know I love you and the work that you've done both on the national prosecuting side as well as on the other side. Grateful for that. Petra, I mean, you didn't speak much, but your impact in bringing Morania, and I'm respectful of your mandate of gender equity because the reality is each one hold one came together because of the inequality that we faced. And Martin, I respect the fact that you asked that we should all treat human beings as equal because for one of my taglines, and I don't seem to use it often, is humanity first. So yes, we need to love each other. We need to come together and help, but to be very mindful and respectful of the different mandates that we all need to roll out. What I'm going to commit to doing for you, Martin, and I see is that your son or your grandson? He's gorgeous, better looking than you, I must say. I'm joking. what what I want. Oh, he's gorgeous. Um, what I commit to doing is I didn't realize there is no rape crisis for men. I didn't and I read your article about the fact that we don't have enough funding for men in our country. So we'll work together on that to see how we can make a difference. And Hillary, I mean, the reason you're on this platform because I'm very very proud of what you do and how you push through, irrespective. And the energy that you give, I don't even understand where you have it sometimes because she runs around all over the country late at night finding these victims, finding these and recently saved women that were trafficked. So much respect and love to you. Kay, you know, I mean, I have the utmost love for you. I mean, that's why we do what we do together. So thank you. Flo and Ed, I mean, you're my shining light in darkness. So grateful that you're on this platform.
First of all, thank you. But I honor and praise each of you for the work that you do. Not just the work that you do, the personal stories that you've shared, being so transparent. Martin, Martin, you almost had me in tears over here because they say we're not supposed to cry, suck it up, and all that stuff. But no, I will cry. And Martin, I just thank you. I thank you for being open enough to share because a lot of men will not. You know, our goal, we wanted to have this platform full of men, but a lot of men are reluctant to share what's happened to them. I will simply say that conversations and these stories, the personal stories that we share, have the power to unlock doors for people. When I say unlock doors, I'm talking about those mental and emotional doors that they've had closed for years. Letting them know that you're not alone. We're in this together. So I thank you for sharing those personal stories. We're here to support you, individuals, and for anyone that might see this. You're not alone. All these voices that came together on a Saturday, different time zones, different countries. At the end of the day, we're here for you to support you. My desire is to see an end to all of this senseless stuff. Will it happen in my lifetime? Probably not. But that doesn't stop me from doing the work. But I want to challenge any adult that has children in their lives. We can teach our children all types of things. We need to sit them down and teach them about what sexual assault is, what gender-based violence is. When we start to educate our young early, then we'll start making a difference. So once again, thank you, each of you. I appreciate you. I'm here for you. I can speak for my wife, Florida. She's here for you. I'm just thankful to know each and every one of you. So you guys are a blessing. And Kay, our fearless facilitator, thank you. Thank you for stepping in and doing an amazing job. You know, Kay facilitated our talk last year, and we started talking about doing it again this year. I said we have to have Kay. Bethany has to be the facilitator. Absolutely amazing. And thank you for the work that you do behind the scenes that you don't talk about. Thank you for the stories that you've shared as well. Appreciate you, value you, and I honor you as well. So thank you to each of you once again.